Good afternoon. I'm Sita Sundar. Welcome to Grammarboost Edu. Today I'm going to discuss about the Mayor of Casterbridge with you. A brief description, not at length. We will be discussing about the symbols, the character, the plot, and the setting of the novel. So let's just start. I'll screen share. The main protagonist of the novel, Michael Henchard, this is completely dealing with his life, how he lives and how he dies. So this novel is completely centered around him, with all the other characters not having that much importance in the story. The setting is in the fictional town of Casterbridge, based on Hardy's real hometown of Dorchester. Wessex also is one part of it. Life in rural England that represents a traditional way of life. Locations also include high street and public places. What are the major themes running through the novel? Actually, they run through the novel. Character is fate, almost as if whatever Henchard does in the past always comes forward to haunt him in the present and in the future. He seems quite helpless to act when a particular circumstance arises in front of him. Furthermore, two conflicting patterns of life is being discussed, traditional versus modern, wherein tradition stands for Michael Henchard and modern stands for Donald Farfrae, the other character in the novel. The past is continuously catching up with the present, which is the most miserable part of this entire novel, because no matter what Henchard does, the fact remains that his past catches up with him. These are the main characters. Of course, Michael Henchard is the most important character. Susan Henchard is his wife. Elizabeth Jane Newson is the daughter of Susan and Newson. Donald Farfrae, the Scotchman who arrives in Casterbridge and eventually becomes a competitor for Henchard. Lucetta Templeman, a lady whom Henchard meets and courts, but she eventually marries Donald Farfrae. Richard Newson, a sailor who buys Susan in the first chapter and takes care of her and Elizabeth Jane. Then there is Joshua Job, who is just an employee of Henchard, who carries a grudge and contributes to the downfall of both Henchard as well as Lucetta. What are the key plot points? The sale. The novel begins with the sale of Henchard's wife Susan by Henchard himself at a fair. He's intoxicated and he sells his wife. He feels deeply burdened by her and therefore wants to get rid of her. The second chapter is a fast forward and he rises to power. He becomes a mayor and he gives up his old habit of drinking for 21 years. The return of the past is depicted by Susan, who returns to Casterbridge with Elizabeth Jane. She remarries Michael Henchard. Then we see the rivalry between Henchard and Donald Farfrae, who becomes his rival and eventually becomes more popular due to his behavior. Donald Farfrae becomes very popular among his employees and all others simply because of his pleasant demeanor. Finally, we see the downfall when Susan dies and Henchard gets to know that Elizabeth Jane is not his own daughter. His reputation also crumbles due to his rash behavior, financial ruin, and the return of Newson. Finally, we see him as an isolated man, which he was in the beginning as well, when Susan and Elizabeth Jane leave him. and he also dies after losing his status as a mayor. What are the symbols, major symbols in the novel? The furmity tent. This symbolizes the origin of Henchard's downfall at wedding prayers. The colliding wagons. This symbolizes the clash of traditional values with modern values. The Skimity ride. This symbolizes the power of public opinion and the destruction of reputation. The caged goldfinch, the most painful symbol, because the death of the bird is also linked with Henchard's death. Finally, Elizabeth Jane looks out for him and she finds him dead with a will. So if we were to look at the novel, I would say that it is an extremely tragic novel which leaves a very painful note in my mind, because Henchard dies a lonely death, and the last lines which Thomas Hardy ends this novel is, "Happiness is but an occasional episode in a general drama of pain." Nonetheless, it's a beautiful novel because Hardy has explored how how the character of a person leads to his own destiny, and how the past catches up with the present on a regular basis throughout the novel. So if you wish to enjoy this novel with me, please come forward, get in touch with me, and I shall be glad to help you. I shall be doing it at length with you, a chapter by chapter summary, as well as all the questions and answers, short as well as long. So that's all for today. Have a great day. Bye.